and gentlemen. I guess I am Sergeant Major Sims today. Just like yesterday, I was General Jody Daniels. I'm Mark Wolf, the Assistant Director of Reserve Component Affairs. On behalf of Sergeant Major Sims and General Brown, I'd like to welcome you all to AUSA and the Command Sergeant Major's presentation. At this point, I will pass it to Sergeant Buckner.
All right, hey, thank you, Mr. Wolf. Just real quick, I want to just take a moment to recognize AUSA for navigating through the turbulence leading into this event and making everything come together and really having this awesome conference where we got to collaborate and talk. So real quick, let's give AUSA a big round of applause. Yeah. All right, so good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. General Harder, thank you for being here. General Del Rosso, appreciate your attendance. Senior leaders and warriors of the United States Army. Welcome to the Army Reserve Command Sergeant Major panel. It's an honor to stand before you today at AUSA, where the future of our force is being shaped by conversations had in rooms just like this. My name is Sergeant First Class Garrett Buckner, and I proudly serve as the Executive Non-Commissioned Officer to your Army Reserve Command Sergeant Major. It is my absolute privilege to moderate today's panel and help guide a conversation that is not only timely, but mission essential. Today's theme is bold and unapologetic, modern, agile, and lethal. We're here to explore what it truly means to redefine reserve power for the modern era, not just in theory, but in practice. This panel will showcase how the Army Reserve is transforming the way we win through 4 strategic pillars: people, training, equipment, and organizational change. Now let's turn our attention to the exceptional leaders joining us on this panel today, representing both the present and enduring legacy of the Army Reserve. This group includes individuals who are actively shaping today's force, and those who, though retired, continue to influence our future through their wisdom, mentorship, and leadership. Each of them brings a unique perspective forged through decades of service, operational excellence, and a relentless commitment to building a force that is ready to meet the demands of tomorrow. First on the panel, this individual requires no introduction, but I'm going to give him one anyway. It is Command Sergeant Major Gregory Betty, your 15th Army Reserve Command Sergeant Major, and host of today's panel. CSM Betty also serves as a Senior Enlisted Advisor to the Chief of the Army Reserves. CSM Betty provides invaluable guidance on all matters affecting our soldiers, their families, and the readiness of the force. With decades of service, he has dedicated his career to ensuring the Army Reserve maintains highly trained, adaptable, and combat ready. Under his leadership, the Army Reserve continues to invest in its people, shape policies that enhance readiness, and foster innovation across the force. Also joining us today is Command Warrant Officer 5, Lashon White, the 9th Command Chief Warrant Officer of the Army Reserves. Chief White serves as the Senior Warrant Officer Advisor to the Chief of the Army Reserve. Like CSM Betty, he provides advice on all matters affecting the readiness of the Army Reserve while being steadily engaged with other Army components, our joint force, and strategic partners. Chief White is a principal advisor to General Staff and major subordinate commands on warrant officer talent management, including recruiting, education, career enhancement, morale, welfare, and discipline. Next, I'm honored to welcome Sergeant Major Scott Holzerland, who serves as the Senior Enlisted Advisor to the Office of the Assistant Secretary of War for Manpower and Reserve Affairs. Sergeant Major Holzerland advises the Assistant Secretary of War on overall policies and procedures of our total force manpower, personnel, and reserve affairs across the Department of War. The Assistant Secretary of War Manpower and Reserve Affairs portfolio spans the entire life cycle of a service member, from recruiting through casualty and mortuary affairs, and includes oversight of quality of life programs for Department of War personnel and families, including Department of Defense education activities and the Defense Commissary Agency. We're also privileged to have with us Sergeant Major Nabors, a distinguished senior non-commissioned officer currently serving at Headquarters Department of the Army, with a career rooted in excellence across personal management and human resources. Sergeant Major Nabors plays a pivotal role in shaping Army-wide policies that impact soldiers' readiness and well-being. Her leadership reflects a deep commitment to empowering the enlisted force and driving innovation across the Army's human capital enterprise. And rounding out our panel is Command Sergeant Major retired Deanna Czarnecki, who currently serves as a strategic engagement advisor for the Nuclear Command, Control, and Communications Directorate within the Office of the Undersecretary of War for Acquisitions and Sustainment. CSM Czarnecki's career spans every echelon of Army and Reserve service, from training future leaders as an NCOA Academy Commandant to shaping strategic policy alongside Sergeant Major retired Grinston. Today, she leads high-level engagements with congressional members, senior Department of War leaders, and industry partners to advance modernization efforts for the nation's nuclear command, control, and communication systems. Let's give a round of applause to our panel. Yeah. Before we begin our discussions, though, we'd like to share a short motivational video that captures the spirit and transformation and resilience and readiness that defines today's Army Reserve. This is not just a highlight reel. This is a reflection of the grit, innovation, and warrior ethos that drive our soldiers every day.
I'm ready.
And I tell you what, if that doesn't get you fired up, I don't know what will. Hey, let's keep the energy high, though. I want to hand it over to the host of today's panel, CSM Betty, for his opening remarks.
Hey, what's going on, CSM Betty? I just want to say thanks. Thanks again to AUSA for having us out here and getting after this. I know after this panel, don't forget we have the Medal of Honor panel after this, so make sure we go out and support the Medal of Honor. I want to say we talked to some international partners also in the crowd, so I want to thank you guys for being here. And I did see General Katulich, retired Katulich, walk in. I think she walked back out. I just want to say hi to her. So again, boss, ma'am, I'm glad everyone is here. The Army Reserve has always sustained the fight through the strength of twice our citizens. So this is soldiers. Today, in a multinodal, competitive and contested environment, sustainment is not enough. To win in large-scale combat operations, we must transform how we train, how we modernize, how we mobilize, and how we lead. This panel brings leaders together, unmatched expertise to discuss the obstacles and opportunities facing the force. Together, we'll examine how the Army remains not just supporting the fight, but redefining what it means to be lethal in an integrated part of the total force. I look forward to a candid discussion and sharpen our vision and strength for the Army Reserve going forward for the future fight. So let's get going.
All right, let's give him a round of applause. Okay, thank you, CSM. Now let's shift into the core of today's panel. I'll begin by asking the panel members here some few direct questions of my own, each designed to spark some meaningful dialogue around the key pillars that I introduced earlier. As we move throughout these conversations, though, I encourage you, our audience, to stay engaged. If any question comes to your mind throughout our discussions, by all means, please raise your hand and a member of our staff will actually bring you a microphone. So we do encourage an open dialogue. We want you involved with this conversation. So don't hesitate, put your hand up and we'll get a mic out to you. Also something new and different that we're going to try. You might have noticed some index cards or handed one as you walked in. What I'd ask is that if you have a question and you maybe miss it, comes into your mind afterwards, just write that down and a member of the staff is going to gather those up. And during our Q&A portion, I'll be pulling directly from those to aid in that conversation and dialogue. I do ask if you do the note cards, please just put your name down. We'd like to know who you are, where you're from. And then if, obviously write legibly your question. And yeah, we do need it legible so I can read it. And then if you want it directed to a panel member, please put that down. If not, I'll try to match it to the best panel member to ask that question. Whether or not you really choose to stand up and ask your question or write it down, your voice matters, and we want to hear from you. Okay, without further ado, I think we should get right into this. And CSM Betty, seeing as you're the host of this panel, you mind if I start with you first?
I have a choice.
You are the Command Sergeant Major of the Army Reserves.
Let's go.
All right. So, I've had the privilege the past 2 days, like a lot of you in this audience here, to sit on a lot of panels throughout AUSA. And I think the common theme around here is the warfighter, how we're investing into our warfighters to modernize our equipment, the way we train, so that we have an adaptable, agile, and lethal force moving forward when we look at the large-scale combat operations against our near-peer threats. I'll use General Harvey since you're here. You say all the time, September 10th, 2001 was just another day, right? Everyone knows, no one knows where they were on that day, but at September 11th, you know where you were. Now, we don't know what the next September 11th is going to look like, but it's not if, it is when, and that day is coming. So CSM, with that, I'd like to know, what is the Army Reserve doing to prepare its soldiers for a contested, degraded, multi-domain battle space, and where do you see some of those gaps right now, if any?
So, great question. Can we give it up for Sergeant First Class Buckner for doing this thing up here? This is pretty good. Is this thing working? So that question is pretty good. So one thing that, and the boss and I, I'm glad he's here so I can pick on him all day long. So the boss and I discussed how do we modernize as a reserve component? And some of the things that sometimes we don't, again, we're not funded as active duty is funded. So some of the things we have to be creative. And a lot of our modernization really come from us being twice the citizen. We go out and we recruit like the 75th recruits per skill set, not exactly per MOS. And some of the skill set we get the cyber, the EW, those type of reps and sets that we get from our citizen soldiers to bring into the Army is some of the things we can't train over the time that we need it. Right now, change has to be done quickly. It has to be done fast. And we cannot just wait around and modernize and just wait and wait and wait. So we go out and we do things like that. And part of some of that just to even get to agility, because the theme of this is modern, agile, and lethal. To get the agility part, we got to make sure that we stay nested with everything that we're doing. With the agility piece, I think the boss, we're going out where we're gonna divest some of our equipment and work on getting better at it. We're looking at degree of funding to get after different type of equipment that we need to get after, so that we can be as agile as the active force. But at any given point, we do have about 8 to 10,000 Army reservists that's nested, deployed forward with active duty. So they're working on some of the modern equipment, the GWIS, all those weapon system or vehicles that's out there. So when they come back, and when we do get it, because right now, transformation and contact is a thing, and we're up next in TIC 3.0. The reserve should be getting some equipment. Once we get that, it won't be new to us, because some of our forces will be out there using and getting after that stuff. And as far as lethality, the same thing. We just got to stick with it. The boss, our motto is twice in the combat ready, and part of being combat ready is about being lethal. So we got to get to lethality and make sure that when we get to these training exercises, we're training to fight wars. We're not just training to exercise. So when we get out there and to be lethal, we get out there with gun trucks, must have guns on, right? Soldiers got to get out and not seeing a weapon system the first time at an exercise. We got to make sure that we get them. Just earlier today, before this, the SMA had a panel which focused on home station training, and some of that we have to get after. And again, I'll go to the boss where he says that for us to get after home station training, he wants to get rid of reserve centers. He does the Thanos thing where he snaps his finger to get rid of some reserve centers and build more Fort McCoys, more Camp Shelby, so that we're partnering with not just active, we're partnering with the National Guard units, so we're getting after lethality. Soldiers are not coming to sit around and watch PowerPoint or do 350-1 tasks. They're getting out to the field, getting out the buildings and touching a weapon, touching a vehicle, turning wrenches and getting after lethality that way. So those are the things. Some of the gaps that we see is how we get after the new technology. And again, degree of funding is going to help us to get after some of the things. And we're going to wait our turn as far as ticket concern to get the weapons and the weapon systems that we need to better the Army Reserve.
No, absolutely. And panel members, if you have anything that you want to chime in on there, by all means, jump in.
So, CSM Betty, you brought up, soldiers getting after it and increasing their lethality. And I think I've mentioned before to several people, one of the phrases that was said to me a long time ago that really stuck with me is great units do basic things really well. And we go back to the era when we used to do that hip pocket training over and over and do round robin training over and over. But muscle memory, as we talked about before, CSM, you train as you fight. And when that becomes your muscle memory, that really makes a difference when you're put under pressure. And now you just react as you've trained. And it's really critical that we take ownership as leaders. Obviously, I've changed uniforms, but still, as I mentor other leaders within the Army Reserve, that we take ownership and understand the importance of putting that requirement back in our daily activity, our weekend battle assemblies, that we really take advantage of every minute we have to increase lethality, get back to the basics, and know what we're doing as leaders so that we can pass it on to our junior soldiers.
Right, and I had the opportunity 2 weeks ago to actually go to the academy BLC graduation. I think CSM Kirkman is right there, the commandant. And we asked, because we have the school system going back to where we have a delta in BLC. So I asked the class, I said, how many of you are E5s? There were some E5s in that class. It was about, 10 or 12 E5s? And I said, how long have you been an E5? And some of them 2 or 3 years. I said, do you think you could have gotten the E6? You could have become a staff sergeant without this course? And back to your point, they said no, because they need that lesson. They need that teaching to get to that E6 level so they can be more proficient at being an NCO. And I said, also goes back to home station training, where a lot of the training that they're getting, if we were doing hip pocket training, some of the stuff they learned in BLC would have already been covered, and it would have just been enforced through the schoolhouse. So exactly, CSM. If we stop, we need to get back to where we're training soldiers, not just in the schoolhouses, but at our reserve centers on a more regular basis, so that it's not new to them. And it's us getting to know our soldiers, squad level, platoon level, and company level. So thanks for that.
And to caveat off of that, with the training that's happening at the NCO academies, it was put back into the curriculum to establish those warfighter skills so that those junior soldiers can come back and they can actually train the units. And I think we need to do a better job at leveraging that young talent, bringing them into the fold, first sergeant putting them on the training schedule and saying, you're going to teach the company, the battalion, the brigade on these basic warfighter skills, because it needs to be refreshed all the time. Not only that, but it gives that soldier purpose. I mean, everybody wants to go to battle assembly with a purpose. They want ownership of something, and that will drive the retention.
Yeah, when it comes down to training, and you talk about our younger soldiers, you bring up a great point, but when we go out to our COEs, and we've had an opportunity over the last year to travel around, my team and I have gone to some of the schools and seen some phenomenal things that some of our younger soldiers are doing. And one of the things that we learned is that they are not trusted when they get back to their units. So, and what I mean by that is, I like to quote something that General Papa said. He said, you know, don't just train until you get it right, but continue to train until you never get it wrong. And when we have our students graduating from these courses, they, in a lot of cases, are smarter than the NCOs that are before them. And I mean in MOS, you know, because our NCOs have grown up to have tactics that can be added to those young soldiers to make them strong leaders. But those soldiers are coming from those schools with the latest and the greatest technology. But when you're in E1, E2, and sometimes even E3, sometimes it's hard to get those leaders to listen to you when you get back to home station. And then, you know, as we all know, if you're not using that talent or repeating that talent, you're losing that talent. So we've got to get back to grabbing those soldiers and saying, hey, you just graduated school, show me what you know. Show me what you can do. And teach us what we don't want. Because as leaders, sometimes, you know, it's a little embarrassing to have a E3, E4 teach you the latest and greatest about an MOS you may have forgotten. It's nothing wrong with saying, hey, I've been on staff for a little while, and this specialist, this private, the PFC can really teach me something to get me back into the groove of our MOS, especially when we start looking at things like drones. Myself, CSM, General Harder had a chance to go down to CASCOM, and we went into the Allied Trade Center. They had privates printing drones. And I mean like printing 15 minutes, they're printing drones. And then they got a box of pieces where they putting these drones together. And these drones work. I couldn't do that. I'm a 914 Allied Trades Warrant Officer. I'm the person who's supposed to have the skill that teaches them. That's what we need to get back to, learning how to build from our young soldiers, to grab the things and the knowledge that they have and to use that, especially at our centers, and get back out in the field. Don't be afraid to get outside of those reserve centers into the field and learn exactly what you need to do to be successful as a leader.
That's some powerful stuff, and I appreciate all of that. I truly do. You know, in CSM, you said something that was, it was kind of iconic. I think we might coin it. You said train for war, not for exercises. And I think that's a very important thing to remember when we're talking about the next war, that large-scale combat operation. This is something that no one in this room has really seen serving in this uniform today. And there's a lot of challenges there, things that we might not be thinking of. And one of those challenges is the mobilization part of that, right? There's a LISCO side of it, but there's also a LISMO side of it, the large-scale mobilization operations. And General Harder, you allude to it all the time, you go, we go. And I think that's an important thing to remember. And so my next question with you is, what are some of the challenges that, from your foxhole and your lens, what do you see as a challenge for the USAR facing in regards to mobilization for a large-scale combat operation conflict to meet General Harder's priority of, you know, mobilize and deploy on time and at scale?
Just me again. All right. So just like you alluded to, what the boss says, you go, we go, and that's the thing that is going to resonate, I think, with Compo 2 and 3, not just us, because it's a total force, it's total army, total force. So they go, we go, and like you said, mobilization. We don't just go to LISCO, we go to LISMO first. We have to mobilize, and the last battle assembly might be the last time you get to train. So this is why we got to get out of those reserve centers and make sure that we're touching equipment, we're firing weapons, so that the soldiers are trained and we don't have, like the video you saw, nothing there is staged. That was soldiers getting after it. The grit of our soldiers getting after it. So that video showed our capabilities as the Army Reserve. And again, we controlled 99% of the liquid logistics. We ran Mojave Falcon. We got Major General Del Rosa up front. Last year, that showed what we can do in a LISCO environment. So we're changing our exercises to fit LISCO and not GWAT and COIN. So we're doing that. Next year, we're doing Sentinel Justice, where we're going to get after that. We're going to see how we get after it. Our thing is, again, it goes back to what the boss says, is about recruitment. We need more privates. We need more privates so that we can build. We're short about 10,000 privates. And that's a lot of truck companies that we're short, that we got to get after. So we got to make sure that we figure out how to advertise, to brand Army Reserve to make it more attractive for soldiers to get in. We're working with USAREC to get after that. And then the retention piece, once we get them here, we got to keep them here. We got to make sure they come to Battle Center, they have a purpose and a vision of something to do. When they go home, they should be tired. They should be tired. They shouldn't come go home and say, oh, I caught up with my friends about what they did last month, right? And then in those 28 days that we don't see them, make sure we keep in contact with them. Sec War just gave a directive, a PT every day, right? That goes for us too. So we got to stay fit at all compos, have to stay fit and have to stay engaged. Platoon sergeants, squad leaders can't just, at Sunday when we check out, we can't just say, that's it, we'll see them the next time we see them at BA. So we got to get after making sure that we're doing it. And for LISCO, the bosses, as I've come up with, where we're going to forward position equipment in areas of the world where we think that the fight is coming, so that it's easier to get people to the fight than to get equipment to the fight. So that way, if we forward position equipment, and now they're getting maintained and they're ready to go. Here, because how we're funded, we just don't have enough money to maintain the equipment. But we send them forward, there will be a team to make sure that equipment is ready to go if and when needed. And another thing is 39 days. Is 39 days enough to fight the war we need to fight? Now, back in the days, listen, Desert Storm. Back in Desert Storm, that's what, 35 years ago? Yeah, 39 days could have been great. But now everything has changed. Everything has changed. If you go look at Ukraine, how Ukraine is fighting, they're putting engineers with fighters so they can adapt and change in hours and minutes, or they're gonna die. So if we don't adapt and change in this LISCO world and take it seriously, if you're not watching videos of what's happening now, you're gonna be surprised. I go out and I ask hospitals we go out to visits. I ask hospitals, have your soldiers ever seen a dead body? Have your soldiers, can you triage 1,000 injuries a day? Can you fit 1,000 dead people a day? Those are the questions. Those are the hard questions you get asked. How are we going to make sure we get that? So getting after LISCO, we got to change our mindset. They go, we go. We got to change. This is not the Army where you go out to fight. You go out to FOB, you fight, and you come back to a FOB, and everything is there waiting on you. The gym, the green coffee, whatever it is, everything is waiting. Those days are over. We're going to have to pack our own stuff, get our own bullets, cook our own food, and maintain and sustain ourselves and fight through everything. The Boston, we go out, we see fuel farms. We see fuel farms out there. Can we do fuel farms in the future? We might have to be fueling from the trucks. When it's time to go, it's time to go. To empty a fuel bladder takes hours. Well, we won't have hours to jump. We have to move. Things are coming. And the drones, we got to make sure that we get drone ready, because some of the simulators that's out there, the VBS-3s, we can show how we can fight in those simulators with drones. I was asking, are we going to have drones at Mojave Falcon? We're driving through this state roads. We can't really fly drones. But that's going to be a contested element once we get out to a fight. Drones are coming, and they will attack down an MSR if needed, because they know that's supplies getting to the forward troops. So we got to make sure that we stay nested with all the technology and stay modern and stay on point. Mindset, just change that mindset. We train for war, not for exercise.
Yeah, I appreciate a lot of what you're saying, CSM, and thanks for having me here, by the way. I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you today. I appreciate what you're saying, because it's a lot of the questions that are being asked up at the OSW joint staff level as well. So hearing how the Army Reserve is shifting its mindset and adapting its training to really prepare for that LISCO thing, because you covered so many important topics, but focusing on maybe some of what the Army Reserve doesn't control, strategic airlift and sea lift, and there's a lot of things about that we're dependent on to get us into that fight at the pace that's going to be needed from us. But what is in our space, I think trend analysis shows that some of the largest hurdles that we see to get an Army Reserve into the fight as fast as we need is really on the people side and on the priority side. Some of what I'm talking to, flashing back to to 2004, mobilizing with the 8229 Flying Tigers back when the Army Reserve still had Apaches. I miss it. It's a sore spot for me. Sorry. But the amount of work we had, it goes to your point about and I heard you talk about it yesterday about just how we've had this mindset that kind of started in Vietnam and took us all the way through GWAT of we have time to prepare. Putting that battalion together to get one reserve Apache battalion forward into the CENTCOM theater took months. Months and months of plucking folks from across the Army Reserve, from the IRR to build one battalion to send it forward. And that's just probably not the reality we're going to be looking at if we're shifting into that LISMO and LISCO focus. So getting after some of the people perspective, those critical personnel shortfalls, and you mentioned the challenges of recruiting and how we're short all of those privates. And I'll just say it, from a department perspective, the Army Reserve is the only reserve component that's not targeted to meet its recruiting goals this year. And I'm going to call out some USAREC on that. I think that, because the total force, and I say that for a reason, because the total force, to your point, depends on the Army Reserve in that LISMO or LISCO environment to provide a bunch of services that nobody else can provide. If those people aren't there, the total force is going to feel that. So the Army Reserve needs to be a priority in manning it, because we've seen it. Any of us who mobilized during GWAT know exactly what I'm talking about. And the challenges to do that and get a reserve unit forward, if you have those critical shortfalls, are just going to make that exponentially more difficult. And, I could sit up here and say, well, you need to look at, unit integrity and squad integrity when you're going into your training exercises, and we should be doing that. But saying that and doing it when the Army Reserve is faced with the challenges it has is sometimes easier said than done. But that is what we want to get at if we're really, truly going to adapt and be able to do exactly what the CSM stated. If we're going to build that lethality and agility in our formations, you need that team integrity to get those reps and sets in. And I mean, we can talk about shoot, move, and communicate training, but you need the people to be doing that. So from that people perspective, that's one of the things. But then also getting after the training aspect, the Taylor blend of training is something I hear a lot of folks talking about. It's not always just that MUTA 4 on the weekend, and I understand we have to balance our civilian careers, and those needs of our citizen soldiers. But the more you can get after that to build into that complex training where we're actually pulling triggers, not always able to do that near a reserve center in 2 days. So just encouraging leaders to look at those creative approaches to how we're going to train our folks and give them the opportunities they need to get after that training. And then lastly, I just talk about prioritization. I think leaders at high echelons need to be able to say no sometimes to some of the things they're asked to do and support. If we prioritize what's going to come out from the NDS, what we know the total force needs from the Army Reserve, and those training opportunities that set up those chances for leaders at echelon to really maximize the training opportunities their soldiers need to be successful in LISCO, I'd say that's another thing we need to look at, ensuring that our leaders are empowered to select those training opportunities, because that's what's going to make us the most lethal and agile going forward.
So just to touch on the people piece again, with us, we're twice the citizen. Who selects, like let's say for instance we have a CSM Bethune or Mr. Hertz, that's also a representative within the big house, and CSM Bethune works for the RD as a civilian. Then we have doctors, we have police officers. How do we choose who goes to that? Who's going to make that selection? Or would they be better to stay and support the homeland, or do we send them across? So those are some of the complexities that's going to come through, where he might have some decisions or not to make. Because do we need the soldiers? Because we're short. We need the soldiers, but are those professions something that we're going to need at homeland if the homeland is going to be contested and we have to fly? So there's a lot of complexities that is going to happen because of who we are as twice the citizens. A lot of things that we do, the homeland needs it also, but we need that soldier to pick up a weapon and go shoot, move, communicate. So some of those challenges we have to, when LISCO situation, because if it's not LISCO, just a regular contested dust-up, right? We can aggregate and build a formation, and we can say, all right, but in a LISCO situation, everybody goes. Everybody's going. So who chooses who stays back to maintain homeland security and things like that, if it's a type of position that person holds? So some tough decisions will have to be made on his part and politician, the president. So good luck with that, boss.
Yeah. And CSM, if I may. So, I think that's one, twice a citizen, right? That is one of the advantages that the Army Reserve has, right? In terms of the duality of the TPU, Troop Program Unit, that is civilian trained as well as military trained. So you are getting this is like a bonus, right? Because they're trained in two different facets. But it makes me think of an article that I read when they were talking about the CAT 24 exercise, which is the codeathon that the 75th Innovation Command does. And they were talking about this soldier, this Sergeant E5, and he's in this unit, and he's talking about his experience and everything like that. And well, later on in the article, they start talking about like, hey, this kid, this Sergeant E5 is a data scientist on the civilian side. And it's like, wow, But he's talking about how he could bring over his civilian skill sets into the Army Reserve, and this just happened to be the 75th Innovation Command. And I think that's one of the things that the Army Reserve definitely has as an advantage, and something that we can capitalize on. In a best case scenario, us being able to map the functions of that civilian, education and experience that they have to mission, mission focus. I think that's the best case scenario. We're not always able to do that, but when we can, that's definitely a force multiplier, especially for the Army Reserve. But this Sergeant E5 at the same time, so I was curious. I'm invested in the 75th Innovation Command because I'm a 75th Training Command alumni, right? So I still follow them. I still listen, read through all their articles and what they're out there doing. And the innovation and the technological advancements that they're doing for not only the Army Reserve but the Army is remarkable. And so with this codeathon, I'm like, man, the Sergeant E5 data scientist, what does he do for the Army? So I looked him up. I'm HR, by the way. And so I looked him up and I was like, wow, this data scientist, what is he, it's not an MOS, so what's his primary? And looked him up and the Sergeant E5 is an 88 Mike. He's slated in at the 75th Innovation Command as an innovation analyst, which is wonderful because that is how the Army Reserve and the 75th Innovation Command was able to capitalize on that civilian skill set inside the unit. However, right, still, focused on, this NCO thing and Sergeant Major thing, right? We still got to make sure the Sergeant E5 Singh is proficient as an 88 Mike. We still have to do that, and I think that goes back to what the panelists were saying earlier, and going back to the basics. So yeah, he's going to be great because he's going to use those civilian skill sets to be an innovation analyst in the 75th Innovation Command. However, if we're going to really amplify combat power and our support to combat power as a sustainment function in LISCO and LISMO and all that other stuff, we got to make sure our soldiers are proficient in their primary MOSs as well. So, Sergeant Singh is his name. I looked him up. He's famous now. He's going to see all this on AUSA. He's going to blow up. He's going to start trending, right? But Sergeant Singh, I need Sergeant Singh to be able to drive that truck. I need Sergeant Singh to be able to dispatch vehicles. I need Sergeant Singh to go out there and do things that 88 Mikes are supposed to do, not just be an innovation analyst. And I think that's kind of the true benefit of Army Reserve, is that we can capitalize on those civilian aspects, and then you got military training as well. And I think that's what makes us the most lethal. We go into LISCO. You're going to go into a very what I assume will be a very ambiguous operational environment. And there's going to be multi-domain operations that's going on. Well, the Army Reserve soldiers are kind of like multi-domain soldiers, because you don't know what you're going to get. They got all these civilian skill sets, and they're able to advise even if that's not their primary duties. So I think, going back to standards and discipline, right? Standards and discipline, make sure they're efficient and proficient in their primary MOSs. And also, if the Army Reserve can leverage their civilian assets, I think that's a key benefit for everybody all around. Yeah.
So if I may continue on that thread right there, Sergeant Major. So you bring up such a valid point that I believe it's really essential for the Army Reserve to continue to relay all that we offer the active component. So deployed to Afghanistan with an engineer brigade, and I was a 42. I was in charge of the G1 office. And I had a 42 E5 working for me. We had to expand the FOB. And to do that, we had to lay a lot of cable. And this guy was a cable man on the outside. Mm-hmm. And we did not have enough G6 personnel to really support and get this done in the speed that we had to get it done. And so this E5 led the group of G6 personnel. Everyone outranked him, but he knew what he was doing and he had a lot to offer. So understanding what you really have in your formation is really critical to being successful. And that's the agility that the Army Reserve truly can bring in any situation. With that agility comes the lethality that we seek. And supporting the active component in that variety of ways is really essential. And we have a lot to offer. And with that, IPSA, everyone loves that word. IPSA allows us to self-proclaim. I say us, but it allows personnel to self-proclaim. If it has its problems, trust me. I was there in the Dimers age. I was there in the IPSA age. But if we can utilize IPSA to the level that it should be utilized and potentially can be utilized, you know, identifying. I remember back in the day, way back a long time ago, there was a directive from Army Reserve Command to input everybody's civilian skills in the Army Reserve. This was a long time ago. It was for a reason, and it brought value. And I think if we can leverage that opportunity again, once again, that's the agility that we can bring to any fight as the Army Reserve in support of active component requirements.
All right,
Thanks.
absolutely. I think it's important. We talked about the twice the citizen, the importance of our soldiers, right? We bring so much to the force. We're truly, multipliers, force multipliers. And I think that's important when we talk about all this training and equipment and change that's going around, the modernization that's happening throughout the Army, the total Army. But the one thing in all of it, it's like we talked about, is the people, right? And I think it's important that we know, and we see ourselves, right? And I think we talked about, Sergeant Major Holzerland brought up USAREC and being short on our numbers. And I think that's something, that we really got to get after. And Chief, I know you are a huge advocate for warrant officers, recruiting and retention them. And I just want to know from your foxhole, what are some of those recruiting challenges within the Army Reserve that have affected the warrant officer growth? And, what can the warrant officers do to help to turn the tide and get those soldiers in or retained?
Well, I think one of the biggest challenges that we have with recruiting is the same challenges that the NCO Corps has. We have a delta in the in our enlisted corps of just under 18,000 soldiers. And we're all fighting for the same group of people. Our biggest recruiting pool is the E5 and E6 population. Now, we do get some officers that become warrants, and we do have some we call high school to flight school, or some people who transfer, and then some other agency transfers. But our biggest pool, especially in our logistic branches, are our E5, E6 populations, which right now are small. Now, when you start looking at our E7 population, they're looking at those E5s and E6s to become E7s. We're almost 7,000 in a delta on E7s. So we are all picking from the same pool. So one of the things we got to do, and Sergeant Major mentioned it, is recruiting. And we've heard General Harder mention multiple times, we've missed the mark for the past 8 to 10 years, about 4,000 soldiers, about 60 truck companies. So when you start looking at that many soldiers and how many, if you're the Army's transportation hub, And if all the rolling logistics is rolling through the Army Reserve, then how do you not have the equivalency of 60 truck companies in your formations? So with our warrant officers, we got to be careful when we start thinking about the quality. Is we really look at the quality of the soldier. And it's not just, hey, you know your MOS, but are you actually a true leader? Because we want the same quality. If you want that person to be a drill sergeant, we want them to be a warrant officer. We are looking for true leaders in the ranks with the skill sets that know their jobs to be warrant officers. It's not just, hey, anybody can be a warrant officer, but we're all really trying to define what it takes to be a senior NCO, a first sergeant, a sergeant major, and also a warrant officer. So same group of people, same pool. We all want from that same group, that same body. But in warrant officers, we really have to start really looking at it and saying, hey, look, we need the quality of the personnel as well. And then also, as warrant officers, we can't start mentoring when they're E5s and E6s. We got to start mentoring when they're E1s and E2s, because that's when you start building that NCO or building that next warrant officer. And most of the warrant officers are your section officers, your leads. One of the sections I love the most in any unit, if you ever walk into a G6 section or S6 section, you will notice you're going to have everything in there from a major down to a private. And they're all working, and they're all working in sync. You know, our G1 sections are the same way. But there are sections where you might go in, you may not see an officer, you may not see a warrant, you may not see an NCO, or you may not see a private. But our G6, I offer that to anybody. Walk into a G6 section, and you will see leadership. You'll see soldiers in action. You will see those NCOs showing those privates how to get out there and set up those satellites, how to work comms. And then you'll see those officers engaged with those leaders. So I say it's like the perfect model of really growing their soldiers from base. And we've got to get back to that too. We have to grow those soldiers, not when they become NCOs, because at that point, they might want to be the sergeant major of the Army. You might not have a shot at them. Start growing them when they're E1s, E2s like everybody else. And then start getting out in your communities more and talk to those soldiers. I've always told our warrant officers, you got to be visible, you got to be engaged, you got to be family-oriented, and you got to be ready. It's no more of this, hey, you know, we all heard the joke. Oh, well, Chief must be around. His hat's on the desk. Oh, there's a steaming cup of hot coffee. Chief is around somewhere. We actually have to be around. All jokes aside, I took my extra hat that was in Sergeant Major's office, and I threw it in the closet because I need him to know that I'm around.
Yeah, because that goes back to where the warrants, right, when it ties into the modern lethal and agile, we need those warrants because they are subject matter experts. Once we get those equipment in and everything else, they're the ones that's going to be out there letting us know exactly how this equipment works and how to maintain it and keep it forward. So as much as I hate losing NCOs to become warrant officers, it's something that's necessary to keep us modern, agile, and lethal, because they're going to make sure that equipment, they know the equipment, and if we have issues with it, they can tell us how to fix it and maintain it so that we can keep fighting.
You definitely can't do that behind closed doors. That's what I need from the Warrant Officer Corps. But that's what I also need from the engineer, from the NCOs as well. I need them to be able to groom those soldiers and to actually make that decision, because it is our NCOs who will really look at a young soldier and say, you know what, you have what it takes to possibly be a warrant officer one day. My NCOs did that for me. So it's not a warrant growing other warrants. Sometimes it's NCOs that grow warrants.
Agreed. If I may, I know I'm talking a lot. I have a lot to say. Nothing's changed since I retired last year. So I am very, very passionate about leading soldiers and leading people. My master's is in leadership studies just because it's such a passion of mine. And Chief, you spoke about, other NCOs leading these young troops, not necessarily warrants, and I agree with that. And when I was NCO Commandant, we always had the recruiters come in to recruit new warrants. Here's the packet you need. This is what you could do. And it was a great opportunity. And of course, while we hate to lose the good leadership out of the NCO Corps, we're still sustaining the Army Reserve through good leadership and development. And it's, everybody's a little bit different. Some are great in the warrant ranks and some are great in the NCO ranks. And I think as leaders, you have to understand who you have in your formation. You have to take the time and then understand what that individual wants, because if it's what you want for the individual, it may not be in their pathway, right? Maybe it's not the right time in life. Maybe they don't have the right circumstances at home to support that change or what have you. So understanding who you have in your formation and taking that little bit of extra time, knowing what their desires are. Where do you see yourself in 2 years, 5 years? Helping them and guide them along the pathway. I mean, as leaders, we have to invest in our young troops if we really want to be successful. If we want to see the retention numbers where they need to be, how do we do that?
Absolutely.
You invest. You keep them engaged in battle assembly. You give them opportunity to showcase themselves, their skills, to teach others, to have purpose. We have to be, it's a culture change, it really is. So we're used to PowerPoints, here's your EO training. Great, let's just sit through and click the PowerPoint, check the block, you're done. I always had a little bit of heartburn with checking the block for EO training, because EO, sharp, what have you, should be an everyday thing. It should be your way of life. Anytime you deal with your troops, it's not just one day a year, it's not a quarterly thing, it's every day. And so if you live by that, your EO training is done, your sharp training is done. If you need something official to check the block, take advantage of the road trip down to the range while you're doing your other warrior tasks and battle drills. You have to capitalize on the limited time that you have and the time that you see your soldiers, because the reserve is just a portion of their life. And I think it really hit me most when I was the commandant of the NCO Academy, and all I had were AGRs. I didn't have TPUs there, but all the students had a variety, active, a National Guard, Army Reserve. And it really became prevalent on how the Army Reserve was all the AGRs had. Send them to school, give them opportunities. It may not help them now, but it keeps them engaged, and it will help the Army Reserve in the long run. So that was one of my things. You've got to give them opportunity and retain that quality. That's all they have. Where our reserve soldiers, the TPU, the MDA for National Guard, they have an outside life. And some of them are very invested in the outside life. Some of them are more invested in the Army Reserve. And this is where I go back to know your soldiers. What is their intention? Do they want to climb the ranks, or do they just want to stay a truck driver and help out with data scientists? Those are the things that we have to understand and then leverage to the best of our capability. And when these young soldiers see that the leadership gives a crap, they're more likely to stay in. And then they're going to go back and tell their story. And then that's how we recruit even more. So it really comes full circle. And I could sit up here on a soapbox all day and talk about this stuff, because I am very passionate about it. And I think we've got some amazing people in leadership positions, and especially even higher. They're ready to make some change. So I think now is the time. Now is the time that we can modernize equipment for the Army Reserve by 3D printing and all kinds of craziness, and cutting times down for contracting requirements. So now is the time. And if we have leaders up here that can really think outside the box, leverage the data scientists and those young troops who get it, who have outside capacity, we need to take full advantage of that. Thank you.
No, thank you, CSM. I mean, that's very powerful. And I had a lot more questions. I really wanted to get through them. But that was incredible dialogue. I really do appreciate it. But we're going to open it up to the audience now. I'm interested to hear, what you guys have. I think we've got a really strong foundation laid for the conversations we've already had, but we will open up the Q&A portion. I know some of you earlier, you did write down some questions. My team, they'll walk around, they'll grab those. We'll bring them up here. So if you have an index card, go ahead and hand that over. For those of you that don't, that's okay. We're going to put the mics. Where's my mic holders? Yeah, let's just go ahead and set those in the aisles. We'll set those on the stands in the aisles. By all means, just go ahead and move out. Get over to that stand, line up, and then we'll take your questions from there. Just one quick reminder, please just ensure that your questions are focused and respectful. Avoid any classified information, politics, pending legislation, or any personnel adjudicated matters. But hey, look, with that, let's get it started. Let's open it up.
I'm short, sir.
We can hear.
No, Sergeant First Class Rodriguez recently was an OCAR, and I'm with the Human Resources Activity. I always hear the boss talk about risk to the Army, and it sounds true to me. I'm a transportation background, so he mentions, fuel trucks not delivering fuel to 101st, 82nd, our Compo 1 brethren, and it's hard to explain that to the big Army and the total force because we rarely train with them, and in 20-some years in the Army Reserve as an AGR, every time I took my unit to training, I went to Fort McCoy, Fort Dix, Fort Interliggett, and I trained with my Army Reserve brethren. The few times I did the Compo 1 integration was an NTC, a JRTC. Those are monumental efforts. It's incredible just to go to, Fort Irwin and take my company out there. Do we see a space where we can train at a smaller opportunity? Let's say I was stationed in Kansas. It was easy to drive to Fort Riley. Maybe train with the first ID out there. Bring a truck unit, bring a fuel unit, and start training with them. Because, we go to Fort McCoy, we train with the Army Reserve, but when we deploy, I don't know who I'm going to deploy with the Compo 1. Maybe I can start seeing some more Compo 1 opportunities for Compo 3 soldiers. That may also energize them. It may show the big Army, what equipment we're lacking, and strength. Some brigade commander out there might be saying, hey, you brought a unit 70% strength. They don't do nothing for me at 70%. Maybe that'll put some pressure on USAREC. Just your thoughts on, that kind of training opportunities.
So I'm nested with Compo 1 and 2. When we had the SEC, we have our in-person SEC, we speak about how do we get after partnering with the other components. We use camp blending a lot, right? Garrison commanders, I've also told my garrison commanders at Devens, they're currently trying to build trenches to replicate what we would do in a trench warfare. Blanding already has a trench set up, so I'm hooking up those two garrison commanders to get after. Why recreate the wheel? They have it there. Let's have it here. So those are the type of relationship we're trying to build throughout. Just like you're 100% right. We don't fight as Compo 1, Compo 2, Compo 3. We fight as total Army. So we are building where we're going into even Mojave Falcon. We're supposed to have a active duty component there, but I think at some point they came out. But we are pushing the envelope to train as we would fight. So I think Sentinel Justice, we're probably going to see some more of that, where we're going to have National Guard is going to be in the box, and we're going to be supporting them in Sentinel Justice. So it's something that's happening. But what it doesn't take the boss or me to come up with that. Every command at every level can reach out to their partners in the states, wherever they are, and get after it. Go to the Camp Shelby's, go to wherever they are, and ask, hey, can we train with you? Same thing with active duty. You can ask those questions if you're on that post-campus station. Don't just sit around and wait for the boss tonight to say, hey, why don't you do it? You are in command. Be in command. And take your troops to where they need to go to fight. Know who your partners are in Compo 2 and 3. Know who you're supporting in Compo 2 and 3. And go out, meet with them, and have those conversations, build those relationships, and start to train and fight with them like we will when we go to war. So those great questions, great points. But we got to make sure we get after it as command teams. Get out there, know who your partners are, and go and train and fight with them.
And if I could add to that, CSM, thinking about the creative, I kind of mentioned it with the time frames that we train in, but creative approaches to training. I don't know if anyone in here has ever heard of the Innovative Readiness Training Program, IRT. I didn't know about it either until I got to OSW. I've been an Army reservist for 20-some years. And I didn't know about it until I came to OSW, and it's a program we oversee. It's a civil military program that brings mostly reserve components, but we also have active component teams that participate in these. And it's a civil military program where Department of War assets go into local communities across the country to work on various types of projects, engineering projects, logistical projects, civil affairs, cyber, a whole plethora of things. Local communities put in bids every year to say, hey, I have something that I think that we could partner, whether it's a private organization such as is the Southwest Indian Foundation that we partner with in New Mexico, or it's a local government. And we execute those programs throughout the year, and mostly reserve components, but some active components participate in these, and we'll say, okay, Navy Reserve, we have this program or this project in New Mexico. We're going to be building homes on the Indian reservation out there. This is yours for the year. Send the Seabees out there, and the Army National Guard says, hey, we have some engineers we'd like to get some training in too. And to Sergeant Major Nabors' point earlier, a lot of our folks bring civilian skills to these things, to these projects, bring their civilian skills to bear while they're also really getting after good, solid MOS training. If you're an engineer and you're building a home to code in an austere environment, as opposed to some of the things they just kind of slap together a bit. Like if they built that hoocha I had in Iraq that would electrocute me in the shower, I'm like, this is a lot better opportunity to get after some real skills. And I watch the NCOs on these projects get project management responsibilities. You're in charge of the foundation. You're handling the roof. You're doing that. And I watch them do it in a joint manner and multi-compo manner. And it's also the kind of training that, just put yourself in the boots of a junior service member. It's like, this is a really cool project. This is the kind of stuff they'll put on their Insta books and Tic Tacs and all those kinds of things, taking the pictures and going, hey, look at me, look what I'm doing, and sharing those experiences to get after the retention stuff. So, this might not be directly LISCO related, but but it's a creative approach to get after total force training opportunities. You're giving your soldiers, awesome experiences that they are going to remember their entire careers. So just to build off what CSM said, there's a lot of really unique opportunities that I just don't know if leadership teams at Echelon understand are out there to get after that. So you don't have to wait for CSM Betty to come to you and say, hey, go out and work on this project with the Guard. Those are there. So be creative in your approaches to get after that stuff, because it just pays in leaps and bounds.
So if I may, Sergeant Major, with that, how do we get the word out, right? Like, I think for the Army Reserve, that's been a continual effort is communication. But in allowing the command teams to be responsible, enabling them to make decisions and create these plans, present their annual training plan to say, this is what I want to do. But then how do we tell them what their options are? I think that gap analysis has to be done on where's our communication lapse? How do we get that out there?
Yeah. No, hey, look, that's great. Sir, I see you there, right? But someone beat you, okay? Hey, the index cards work, right? I'm going to alternate between the live questions and the index cards. So if you want that question asked, you know the rotation now. The question, wow, that's a good question. I hope y'all are ready. It's anonymous, so by better discretion, maybe we don't let them know because they didn't put their name down. No, but this is a good question. In every previous large-scale combat situation, the Army and the reserves were forced to rapidly grow. In World War II, the Army grew from 30 to 90 divisions. Are the reserves ready to handle that type of rapid growth? That's a tough one. Who wants to answer?
Yeah, so I will tell you that it's not a if, or it's more of a when. It's something that General Harder brought up this morning as he was talking to a group, is that the war that we see in Ukraine right now in Russia is being fought between two reserve armies. If we have a LISCO event, it's not a will we be able to grow. The American people will be asked to grow. Mm-hmm. And so we will be called to the front, whether you want to come or not. So we right now are just building unfortunately, the initial wave. It's where we're staging equipment. It's where we're bringing the people from the schoolhouses now to train. And hopefully we will have the trainers available to train those people who will rapidly deploy. So it's building that nest egg now. And those projects, it's like we said, we have these 1 alpha units, these units that are, 0 to 30, they're out the door. If we are under a LISCO environment, just like World War II, just like World War I, just like, believe it or not, we had a slight build-up for Desert Storm. Now, it went 45 days, but there was a build-up for it. And we looked at what type of units, because I remember having to take equipment. We changed it from green to tan, like overnight. We were running whole divisions through paint shops. So those are the type of things that we're going to have to look at. We had basic training stations set up. Right now, we have, you know, you can call them whether they're mothballed or what, but we have basic training stations that are ready to go at any time. The American people will react to the diversities or whatever comes forward. We will be ready.
I would kind of actually try and reframe that question more as are we able to grow, as are we able to sustain till we start growing? And I heard the boss talk about it a little bit yesterday. I think one of the important things we need to factor into everything Chief said is that we have these platforms and these things are out there, but how well are those going to work in a contested homeland environment? And what is the Army Reserves, yes, it is, apostrophe S role, in how we protect those homeland assets. I'm not sure if that's a question. I heard it asked. I think it needs to be asked over and over and over, because I know we have the skill sets and the folks, whether it's their 88 Mike MOS or something else they can do to help with that. We know that's an issue, or that would be an issue in a LISCO fight, being the LISMO part of it, really, probably. But I think there's a lot we could do as a force, Army Reserve, to support that, but I'm not sure how much that is getting asked. So, I mean, the force is going to grow. It won't be the reserve growing, it'll be the Army growing. But what can we do as a reserve to help facilitate that and help sustain us until those forces are there when they're going to be, well, they were going to be needed before they're able to get there, but until they are able to get there. So that's how I approach it.
Yeah, I agree. America won't have a choice but to react and to grow where needed. And that's what happened in World War II, right? Everybody came together and we started using our own resources, and everybody stepped up to support different, women went and worked in factories to support that. So America will step up when that moment comes. I'm sure of it. But that's why we are a reserve force.
But look what happened right after 9/11. It went up. The amount of people that joined the Army, or the military, volunteers went up dramatically. So if the country is under duress or need American citizens to step up, they will step up. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They will step up. 'Cause we've seen it over and over.
No, hey, the anonymous person. I hope you're good. All right, hey, good. Awesome, thank you. Appreciate that. We'll go over to you, sir.
All right, thank you, First Sergeant. Senior Chief Khalif Mitchell retired from the U.S. Navy, 23 years of reserve service. Up until August, I was serving as the Command Senior Enlisted Leader for Navigator Reserve Program at the Echelon 2 level. So we absolutely nailed it talking about people, transitional leadership versus transactional leadership, encouraging our people to get them to feel ready at every level of leadership. My question really is how, now that I'm out and I'm retired and I can't be in a uniform, how does industry come around you all to meet the strategic need of retention and recruitment efforts until the balloon goes up?
Can you?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
So, okay, here I go again. So, for industry support, like, for example, situations like AUSA and showing what capabilities are out there and partnering, obviously it depends on what industry. The Best Ranger competition, things of that nature, I know they've got a lot of support from industry, so helping to facilitate training to make them the best that they can be. Those are skills that we require that need, one, the constant train up and reminder that that's important stuff. Two, the funds to do stuff like that, right? But as far as supporting, again, various types, so whether it's our reserve soldier that works for you full time, understanding that they have a need to be good at what they do on the reserve side. So how is industry able to support in that manner? You know, we have the ESGR program to recognize great partnerships with industries like that. Allowing the time off, supporting soldiers, and the family aspect in that pays big dividends. That allows our soldier to be the leaders that's required for the Army Reserve and then pass that along down. I mean, gosh, there's so many different ways that industry can support. Obviously, financially is a great way. And under the new acquisition with Secretary Driscoll and what he's putting out there, and you know, the timelines, how fast can we get contracts written so that we can acquire some of this modernized equipment that facilitate great work and training for our soldiers? There's just, it's so vast, I don't even know how to really scope an answer for your question, because it's so many different facets of it.
Let me give a little piece. So a lot towards CSM is saying that industry can help us with speed, innovation speed. Some of the things that we don't have within the military, they can help us to get, like they work with the 75th and get after it. They can come in and also pricing. Make the price that we can afford as the military and not overprice it because we're the military, right? It's so that, because you know you're helping to save American lives. So don't, you know, so make it so that we can afford it. Make it fast, make it adaptable, make it rugged so that we can take it out in the field. And if it, you know, it can handle with the cold, heat, whatever we throw at it and things like that. And then have training sessions where we can learn and help us, you know, come in with training sessions where we can learn how to use that equipment. And then, like she was getting at, we do have servicemen, but who's probably going to be part of your organization. Allow them the time to be at battle centers without repercussions and things like that, so they can get after training, not just at your site, but at their site. They got to go to school. They got to get after all the things we get after as being soldiers. And then you remember it because you were a former military person. So industry, we need industry's help in technology, getting after technology and showing us how we can defeat drones quicker, swarmer drones. Because I had the question to one of the vendors downstairs. How they were telling me to have drone busters. I said, yeah, that's 1, 2, or 3 drones. What if they throw a swarm of 600 at us? How do we defeat 600 drones coming at us? Because one drone hitting the truck is one too many. That's a soldier's life. How do we get after things like those? Are the type of help we need from industry. Just like we hired, I think it was 4 industry techs who showed us how a cheaper way than to firing $1 million missiles at $50 drones. How do you help us not spend that type of money on defeating a drone? Because we have to defeat the drone. So those are the type of help we need for the future fight. Whereas EW, how to reduce our signatures, those type of things that we need to modernize and that are near peer. Let's keep that near peer. Let's keep the near in our near peer as much as we can, and don't let them become peers. Right? That's the type of help we need from industry to keep us at a distance as the best military in the world. So we need industry. That's the type of help we need from industry. Things we can't do within the Army, if they can help us do it better, quicker, faster, and a little cheaper, then we can get after it.
Awesome, thank you.
P3O. Yeah, our Army Reserve P3O program is partnered with industry to make sure that our soldiers have occupations and have jobs. So I think it goes back to also making sure that we have those people in the seat. And a lot of people do not understand how many Army reservists or National Guard members or anyone in the reserve sector actually are in industry. And what they bring to the table is amazingly valuable to those units and to those commands. So we have that every day. You know, a lot of our senior leaders are executives in some of our biggest organizations, and what they can do to make sure that those organizations understand what the reserve capacity brings to them is always great.
Absolutely. Yeah. Hey, look, we'll go with you, sir, because you were standing first. Okay. All right, so we're going to go with you. I saw you try to sneak in. I saw you. Sir, we'll go with you.
Okay. Gary Port, I'm the Army Reserve Ambassador for New York. I'm going to give you a little sunshine. I just got an email from the commander of the New York City Recruiting Battalion. We are being incentivized more to focus on the reserve mission in fiscal 26 than we were in fiscal 25. I am sure that we'll be able to meet our mission requirements in New York City. We did meet our requirements in 25. And I'm pretty sure based on that, they're going to meet it in 26. And I would suggest giving a call over to them to find out what they're doing there, because the recruiting command in New York City is phenomenal. I work with them very closely. But I'm going to throw a little cloud over that. One of the problems that we have, and this goes to what you were saying, Command Sergeant Major, about retention, our E1s to E4s are losing money by going to drill. That is a fact. They have to pay money to get to drill. And in the New York area, one of our big areas is in Farmingdale. You can't get there except by car. And if you don't own a car, you're going to Uber or Lyft it. You've just blown your drill money. That's a retention problem.
I live in New York, and you can't get to Farmingdale without a car. Long Island Railroad, right? You can't use the Long Island Railroad to get there. We do have the Nassau buses to get there. But bigger than that.
Nice buses aren't nice.
Nice buses are there. So I am a New Yorker, so I can answer to that. And actually, right, so soldiers, we try to keep soldiers in commuting distance. Now, we are the reserve. You can live wherever you want to live and serve wherever you want to serve, where we have reserve companies. We do give out the IDT trip, which is what, $750 now, that soldiers can use to get to battle assemblies, to the flagpole. They just can't go willy-nilly wherever they want to their flagpole. So there are ways to reimburse soldiers for travel outside of 50-mile radius to get to where they need to. And New York City is huge on traveling, transportation. I work for the MTA. So they can get around as much as they need to in New York City. So that's the wrong state. If it's a different state, I would say, yeah, maybe. But New York, there's all kind of modes of transportation, public transportation, to get you from point A to point B. The Q11 takes you to time. We'll talk some more.
All right, now, hey, Sergeant Tolbert, where'd you go? Did he take your question? Okay, all right. Just wanted to make sure he didn't steal your thunder.
I am from the South. We don't have this problem. Good afternoon, Sergeants Majors, sir, leaders. So a couple of key points I noticed. Sergeant Major Nabors, thank you very much for speaking about nesting warfighting abilities with our MOS technical proficiencies. That is absolutely key. We are all 11 Bravos first, but we are also 42 Alphas or 92s or whatever else, so we do need both of those. Sergeant Major Czarnecki, gracias. IPSA is life, people. Get on board. It's so great.
It's here. You got to take advantage of it.
Look at his face.
Sir.
Look at his face.
I didn't even introduce myself, so you don't know who I am, sir. Master Sergeant Talbert Okar, sir. I'm one of yours, War Eagle. So I did want to note at the SMA's brief this morning, a great brief, transforming the home station training. This is for the sergeants majors, officers. So to you all as sergeants majors, Sergeant Major Mobar put emphasis on training management, and he also put emphasis on mentorship 2 levels down.
Amen.
Right? It was great. So how do we in the Army Reserve, again, after we do say 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year, that has never been my experience, but how do we as non-commissioned officers, senior non-commissioned officer staff, everything else, how do we get after that? How do we develop our junior soldiers, get after that 2 level down mentorship, get on those calendars, get after it to support what we need to do as Army Reserve soldiers?
May I? I love this stuff. So, me again. All right. One, leaders, what is your priority? Right? You need to grow the next leaders, right? I retired. Sergeant Major Nabors backfilled. She's actually literally, she backfilled the job I had in Army G1. It is so important that we stop getting into stuff that we don't need to be into and focus on that next level. Who is going to take over? Right? Who's going to fill those boots when you have to retire to make sure that the job gets done? Those soldiers need us. They need our experience. They need our expertise. They need our mentorship. Stop thinking of your next position, your next whatever, your next award you want to get. Start thinking about those soldiers that look up to you every single day and say, that's what I want to be like. This is my passion. I could go on for the next hour, Sergeant Tolbert. So I won't, though, I promise.
So, all right. So just to piggyback on that, I say to the boss, whenever I have the in-person senior enlisted council, I say to them, who is going to replace me, right? And I say, raise your hand, and I refuse. No one's raising their hand. So I ask them the same question: who is replacing you in your position? Who are you looking at to take over when you leave that position? And we all should be doing this, right? We all should be doing it. Officers do a way better job than we do, NCOs, at taking care of the next person up, right? And we have to start thinking that. We have to mentor. We have to make sure that we're mentoring down and building and bringing our soldiers up. And some of it, I say, we got to get personal, not intimate, but personal with our soldiers to see what they want. We have to have those conversations, and we have to be leading by example and get after. Hey, make sure you know that Betty isn't so great at shooting. Let's get him out to the range. Betty isn't this. We don't know because we're afraid to ask some of these questions because for whatever reason. EO, IG, that's not a thing to hide behind because you don't want to lead. You're scared to ask questions. You're scared to make on-the-spot corrections and things like that. We got to get after knowing our soldiers, knowing their capability, and telling the truth. Stop having soldiers write their own NCOERs. That's what y'all got to stop doing. And tell the truth on NCOER so that we're not pushing someone who's not capable for the next assignment because you're afraid to write an NCOER because you don't want that rebuttal on NCOER. Write NCOER or counsel the soldier. Make sure if you're writing a negative NCOER, you're counseling that soldier through the process and showing how you have helped them to move forward in becoming better or what you have done to make them better and how they're not listening or everything else. If that leader needs help in developing a soldier, reach out to another leader. Say, hey, I've tried this way. Do you have another way for me to getting after this soldier XYZ? But write the right eval so that the soldiers can know where they stand and they know where to move forward from that. So that's a big way of getting after teaching our next set of leaders and look out in the formation, see who should be replacing you and help them become the next you or better than you, actually.
There's a great book by Bob Boylan, and it's easy read. It's called How to Get Everybody in Your Boat Rowing in the Same Direction. Highly advise it. It even has little charts, you fill it in, right? And so take that time to know what you as a leader expect and relay that to your soldiers, 2 levels down, and then take the time to know what your soldiers expect of you and themselves. And that's how you begin that mentorship. But you have to put it on the calendar. That comes first. You got to put the effort in, and it's hard. It makes late nights, right? But it needs to happen, especially if we're going to be a team fighting the nation's wars and winning. We have to bring them up.
And I'll also add one more thing. So for me, it's always been about, being realistic about what you can commit to as a mentor.
Yeah.
Because, it depends on where you are in the job and balancing, school, work, family, and all of that. And I get a lot of requests for mentees, and I'm like, man, I'm strapped over here for time and all this type of stuff. And the type of mentorship that I do want to do is gonna cost some serious time because it's meaningful to me. So, finding, I had a mentor tell me once the power of 4, right? Get you 4 mentors and do kind of like a cyclic, check in with them, see what's going on, give them some leadership development type of nuggets here and there. And then make time, hey, let's go to lunch. Let's do it over lunch. I got to eat lunch for the day. So, hey, jump in with me. Let's have a conversation. Let's talk about it. But I've kind of had to really break it down to like sizes of 4 in order to kind of get to all my people that I'm mentoring. But I think you got to be realistic about the commitment that you want to make to those that you mentor and make it meaningful and have value and not just because, they ask you to be a mentor. Oh, that's great. But, they're like your mini investments, if you will, and that's kind of how I see it. And just the gratitude of someone asking you to be their mentor should mean a lot. And I think if you lead with that, then you'll be good to go.
Cool. Thank you, leaders.
Hey, outstanding question and great responses. I really do appreciate it. We have time for one more question, so
we can do 2.
There's
we can do
2. We go with both.
Rock, paper, scissors.
That's what I was gonna say, but we'll go with two. So Sarah, I know you were up first. We'll go with you, and then we'll go with you, Major Campos.
Firstly, thank you for your service. I'm not a military person myself, but veteran suicide is something that's very close to me. So I'm the founder of a company that can accelerate classroom learning speeds by 300 to 600% while increasing retention by 35 to 60%. This results in 19 to 40% better grade point average increase. So we're currently about to do our SOCOM testing, we're about to do our SOCOM testing on Tuesday, and we're about to start we were just about to start a pilot program with Montgomery Air War College, but that fell through because of DOGE. So I have one question for you. Is this something that's interesting to you, and when can we start a pilot?
Well done.
Shark Tank. Shark Tank.
We're calling you up. You are our General DeRosa. You're the we'll sync up afterwards, yeah. Leave a business card.
Yes.
Major Campos.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Major Campos. I'm the exchange officer at the Office of the Chief of the Army Reserve. So let me just step back a moment and two key messages from an allies perspective. The if you go, we go. That's been our modus operandi for the allies for many years. We look at ourselves to try to make sure that we're ready and able to actually fight beside you guys. Now, a common message from the back to basics, and I think as all the NATO partners are actually going through transformation right now, the reserves are actually all growing and changing in the ways they're doing. So from an NCO perspective, we always see the 4 Ds, dress, drill, deployment, and discipline as the backbone of that you guys bring to the force. It almost seems to me now, from what you guys are talking, that there's a couple of more Ds that needs to be brought up. It's perhaps dynamic development. And that's the one that is right now, you guys keep talking, and we need to make sure that we keep up with this transformation. So I see NCOs as the human and procedural masters when it comes to interoperability. And then, of course, we have the chiefs and the technical part, which is great. But given the opportunity, since there are some partners right here and allies, what would you want from them as opportunities? Or perhaps what would you like to offer to them to optimize this dynamic development that the NCO Corps requires? Thank you.
We would like to offer it our schools, if you could come to some of our schools, our leadership schools, so that we can have some of the same, and offer us to come to some of your leadership schools so we can have similar mindset, so that when we do go out and fight, we understand each other. The same thing, if you come, so those are some of the things that we'd want. You and I, we've been talking for years. We just got to make sure that we get everyone involved in the process. The boss and I, when we travel to different countries, we make sure we meet with their senior leaders and see how can we incorporate and learn and train together, so that when we do fight together, it's that. So we do want to see you in some of our schoolhouses and have us to do some transfer programs where we're sending soldiers to you, send some soldiers to us, so that we can learn different ways, so that when we do get to fight, it's not like a surprise of how we're fighting. So that's something I would love to see.
If I may, I would love to work with you to put actually an ally and a partner in your panel next year. So,
if I can caveat on that just a moment. When I was a commandant for an NCO academy, we had Global Medic going on Fort McCoy at the same time. And one of the Canadian leads for their medical personnel came by the office and said, hey, I'm going to be here with a bunch of medical people during this time frame. We'd love to work together. And we did, and it was wonderful. We had them come out and perform the ACFT with us one morning, and so some of those simple things. But then we also did like a brown bag lunch and invited everybody to just sit and ask questions. Tell us about how you operate. You'll hear how we operate. We had some of their officers sit in on our battle staff session where our classrooms discussed how they would lead their troops forward in a large-scale operation. And so they provided their input from an international outlook on, well, remember, if you're talking this way, don't forget your international partners, and you have to explain this, or are we prepared to be interoperable in that kind of environment? So what you said, that's very valuable, especially what we're preparing for, right? And keeping that allied partnership is so critical. From that, I also sent a few of my instructors over to Denmark to one of their NCO schools to learn. And it was an amazing opportunity. Thank you, OCAR. It was fantastic. And I think those pieces, like you said, are really, really important for us as a global entity to continue pushing forward.
Absolutely. Hey, Sergeant Major, I got the green light for you to get one more question. So you will be the last one we'll take. If you have another question, put it on the index card. Our team will gather it, okay? So this is our last question. Go ahead.
See, I have a comment, not a question.
Of course. Sergeant Major Gaskins.
Hey, so really quick, my name is Sergeant Major Kenyatta Gaskins. I work for the Assistant Secretary of the Army for Manpower and Reserve Affairs. Good or bad, I've been working in the Pentagon for about 5 years now, and I'm still I survived that, which I laugh about that every day. But comment, right? So 5 years ago, you couldn't tell me the difference between an AGR, a TPU, an IMA at all, right? But I had outstanding partners that helped me understand that, and now I can speak it with the best of them now. I like to say that. But what I've learned, though, the Army Reserve provides 56% of the sustainment capacity for the Army. Entire Army. That's all
That's a
compos,
lot.
right? So understand the capability that Compo 3 brings. Meaning I learned that, but the things that we're going through right now as an Army with its transformation, Compo 3 is absolutely vital to that. And the changes that we're doing are changes for the better to meet the global requirements that we have going on now. The NCOs that I worked with, Sergeant Major Czarnecki, Sergeant Major Nabors, Sergeant Major Holzerland, Sergeant Major Cook, Sergeant Major Kirkman, and probably some others that are in here as well. This great American who's sitting right here as well too, and Sergeant Major Betty, of course. Come on now, yeah, okay. But what you guys provide is absolutely vital. So I just wanted to make that comment. What we're talking about is absolutely necessary, and we're going to continue to change so we could face the next fight. So I'll shut up now. Thanks.
Absolutely, yeah. All right, so we're going to start closing this up. First and foremost, honestly, I want to thank you, the audience, for your participation in that dialogue. I'm so glad that I stood here and not there answering some of those questions, because those were pretty tough. But I also want to thank you, the panel. Honestly, I appreciate each one of you being out here, stepping into the breach and joining us to make this panel what it was. But without further ado, how about I hand it over to the host of this panel, your Army Reserve Command Sergeant Major.
I think he just closed it out. Also, it's great to be the last panel of the day, kinda, because we can go over it a little bit and no one would care. But if you do have the opportunity, please go to the Medal of Honor. Make sure we show some respect to that. Get over there and show respect there. Thanks again for coming out, AUSA. I appreciate you having this, and leaders coming out. You didn't have to be here. You're here, and we love it. I think Mom is watching, so hey, Mom. I got through 90 minutes, so I appreciate it. Thanks all for coming out, and I'll see you at the next event. Thank you.